Hi guys, it's me, Skylar Capri, and today we are ranking and reviewing all of the Bath & Body Works X Disney Princesses collection. Beyond the rankings and the reviews, I'm also going to be comparing each of the princesses to past Bath & Body Works fragrances. That way, instead of shopping the collection, you might be able to shop your stash. Now, if you're returning to my channel, welcome back, and if you're new here, welcome. We do all things body care on my channel, so if that sounds like something interesting to you, make sure to hit that subscribe button, and without further ado, let's dive right on into the video. All right, you guys, we're going to start out in the number 5 spot and work our way up to the number 1 spot. I am not including Belle or Tiana as I didn't pick up either of those fragrances and those released last year. I really just wanted to focus on the new fragrances that are coming out. Also, my laptop is sitting beside me to the bottom right, so in case you see me looking down, I'm just trying to reference some set notes. So starting out in the last spot, or the number 5 spot, I have Life's a Fairy Tale. Now, Life's a Fairy Tale, packaging-wise, I think this packaging is cute for the pocket back. However, I think it's really pretty in the body care and the candles. Really wish they would have just used the exact same packaging on the pocket back. I know this is a much smaller area to work with, but I really would have wished that I could see like all the icons and that kind of grid pattern. I think that's just much better than this one. This one just looks a little basic in my opinion when you compare it to the rest of the collection, but this one has notes of, it says a blend of charming berries, whimsical floral notes, and the warmth of Kingdom Woods. Now, this one's kind of interesting. If you remember last year, Life's a Fairy Tale was much more of a perfumey peach. This year, it's more of like a woodsy berry. This one in specific, on initial smell, like inside the pocket bag, inside the lotion, inside whatever, I feel like it smells a little bit different than it smells on the skin. That's just my personal opinion. On the skin, you really get almost this deep, mysterious, woodsy vibe, and for that reason, I'm gonna say this is somewhat comparable to the Evil Queen that we saw last year. Now, when I say somewhat comparable, I'm saying that they're in the similar realm of fragrances. I don't think these are a one-on-one dupe. Most of these fragrances are very similar vibes to other past Bath & Body Works fragrances, but they're not identical, with the exception of one that I think is really similar. So I just want to throw that out there, that it might not be the exact same fragrance, but it's definitely in a similar realm. Now, Evil Queen, if you're unfamiliar, that one had notes of dark red apple, vanilla suede, and wicked pear. And very similar to Life's a Fairy Tale, it did have that almost like berry, fruity quality, but there was something deeper and darker and mysterious. Also, Life's a Fairy Tale has a smoothness to it that I think we saw in Evil Queen's Vanilla Suede. So for that reason, I would say those fragrances are in the same realm or the same category of fragrance. This one for me earns the number 5 spot because this isn't something that I think I'd wear in body care. I don't know if it's that woodsy note that's just dragging it down a little bit for me, but this is something that it's a very particular scent. It's not very layerable in my opinion with what I have in my collection. So this would be a standalone scent. And it's just not my favorite kind of type of fragrance for me to warrant buying it in the full size. So at number 5, we will have Life's a Fairy Tale. Now, the next one we're going to have is going to be one that I think smells very similar to something else, and that is going to be Snow White. Now, Snow White definitely gets big packaging points for me. I absolutely love this blue packaging. If we can get it to focus. I don't know why I'm having such a hard time today. There we go. And Snow White, if you're unfamiliar, has notes of mystic red apple and ripened fruits set against a backdrop of enchanted wood. So really enjoy the blue packaging. It's a nice appley fragrance. And the one that I think this is very similar to is actually Champagne Apple and Honey. Now, Champagne Apple and Honey has notes of crisp apple, sparkling champagne, and jasmine honey. I wore that one all fall last year. I did pick up the Mini Friend Fragrance Mist. So initially, when I smelled this, I immediately was like, wait a minute. I just kind of used this one up in Champagne Apple and Honey. Now, I'm not really getting, it says in the Snow White scent notes, it says a backdrop of enchanted woods. I'm not getting a super deep woodsy note like I am in the Life's a Fairy Tale. I believe it's the warmth of Kingdom Woods. So the woodsy note in Life's a Fairy Tale, definitely deeper, darker than Snow White. Snow White, I'm not really getting a woodsy style fragrance at all. If anything, it's just kind of like a light floral style fragrance, which is something that I got in the Jasmine Honey with champagne apples and honey of last year. So I definitely say if you have champagne apple and honey from last year and you were debating about picking up Snow White, definitely go back and smell that one. I think that these are very similar. Now, I did see someone's comment saying that they thought Snow White smelled identical to Book Loft. I kind of get that vibe as well. Like, I think maybe it could be a combination of Book Loft and Champagne Apple and Honey because you definitely get a strong apple fragrance. But there's also like this floral quality to it. I don't get very like deep and mysterious like I do with the Evil Queen, like I do with Life's a Fairy Tale, but there's something a little bit kind of mixed in with the apple that I could see it going Book Loft, but I more so see it going that kind of Champagne Apple and Honey route. I think Champagne Apple and Honey might be a tad bit sweeter than this one. If maybe that one you're looking for an apple, but it's just not sweet enough for you, I'd recommend this one. But if you already have Champagne Apple and Honey in your collection, definitely give that one a smell. I think these are going to be fairly similar, very much giving off the same appley vibe. Now in third place, we're going to actually have Mulan. So Mulan is one of my favorite Disney movies of all time, and her packaging I think is super pretty. She has notes of magnolia blossom and radiant apricot meeting the freshness of fierce waters. Now, that's exactly what this one smells like when you think about the latter half of the scent notes, those fierce waters. I really don't get much of that magnolia or the apricot. If you are looking for a very clean fragrance with a little bit of a kick to it, that fierceness definitely comes off in almost like a spice, or not necessarily a patchouli, but there's just some type of like a spice to it, I think this is going to be for you. I really don't get much of that apricot. There's not a big like citrusy note in this that I'm like, okay, that's apricot, or okay, that's some type of citrusy tangerine fragrance in it. I really don't get that at all. And the magnolia, it must be extremely like just mellow and in the background because I'm not really smelling any of that classic white floral that Bath & Body Works does in a lot of their fragrances. So if there's been nothing so far out in Bath & Body Works that you think is fresh enough for you, highly recommend trying out Mulan, although it does kind of have that initial kick to it. What I think this is kind of similar to, and not similar in the fact of the scent notes, but similar in that kind of initial kick, is actually going to be Sweater Weather. Now, Sweater Weather, again, this released in fall, same time as Champagne Apple and Honey of last year, and this one has notes of Suncrisp Apple, Autumn Leaves, and Orchard Woods. Now, there's something in this that when you initially smell it, there's a slight kick to it. It's not as spicy as an Into the Night, but there is something that on initial smell, you're kind of like, oh, okay, you're kind of greeted with something. And that's very much the vibe that I get with Mulan. I would not say that these are the same fragrance. However, this is so much more aquatic than this one. This also has a little bit of apple that I don't smell any apple in this one. If it is going to lean some type of like fruity way, I think there's just a very like hint, like a pinch of a sweetness. Couldn't really identify the fruit. That must be the apricot in it. So these are by no means very similar. But if you were ordering online and you're like, ooh, I really don't know about Mulan, I'm hearing it, you know, people are talking about these fierce waters. I wouldn't say it's to the level as Into the Night. I would say it's basically like Sweater Weather up a notch or two, but still under Into the Night, and then a lot of aquatic. I also think this might be sort of similar to Ariel of last year. Now, Ariel of last year had notes of sea salt breeze, golden citrus, and coral waters. If you are scared of that bite, if you were like, okay, like I'm really interested in trying Mulan, but you already have Ariel in your collection, this very much gives a similar aquatic vibe. I would categorize this as an aquatic fragrance, very similar to Ariel. And if you like Ariel and you're looking to like buy the rest, maybe see if they're different enough, but you're not a fan of like a patchouli or a kick or anything like that, just stick with Ariel. I don't think that you need Mulan. I think Mulan's pretty. Would this be something I buy in the body care? I don't know. I think it's just too fresh for me, and that kick really does overpower the fragrance at times. Even on dry down, you can definitely still smell that kick as soon as your nose hits the scent. So this is something that I think is different. I think it's unique. I think if you're looking for something fresh and nothing at Bath & Body Works, like gingham's not fresh enough for you, maybe some of the home care is what you're looking for, like maybe you like the fragrance of the Morning Rainstorm, or, you know, sun-drenched linen, or you want something clean, I think this is going to be for you. Just keep in mind, it kind of has that initial kick when you first smell it, and on first smell into the dry down as well. So this is going to rank in at number 3 simply because it's unique, it's different, it's nothing that we're seeing in the typical collection. However, in body care, it's just a little bit too much for me personally to warrant buying the full size. Now, the next fragrance we have, this is a very, very close ranking between 2 and 1, and the second fragrance we have is going to be Rapunzel. Now, Rapunzel, I think she wins the packaging points. I love how much they were able to incorporate things from the movies. You have the font, you have the lanterns, you have the flower, you have the purple. I think this is super pretty. Now, this one has notes of glowing sundrop flowers and rich nectar wrapped in golden musk. When I was doing my first impressions of this, I said this smelled perfumey. It didn't really smell like anything else, and there was a certain level of like uniqueness to this where over time it's going to be like, oh, that one smells like Rapunzel. It's almost going to cement itself as an individual scent. Now, I was thinking last night, I was literally laying down in bed and I was like, wait a minute, I think Rapunzel might smell like something I have. So of course I'm getting up in the middle of the night and smelling the two because that's what Bath & Body Works YouTubers do. But this one, it has a warmth to it. It is perfumey. There's something unique about this. And this is also something that I felt about Tropidelic. Now, these are not the same scent. I want to be very clear about that. I don't think these are similar, but I think they are the same vibe. A lot of people have been asking to see Tropidelic back. I think if you enjoy Tropidelic, you will enjoy the Rapunzel. Tropidelic, of course, I don't have the scent notes because this is the smaller bottle, but I think it's like ylang-a-lang, like silver petals. No, that's platinum. Yeah, no, platinum is the bergamot, the patchouli, and the silver petals. I think Tropidelic, I think it's like creamy white florals, ylang-a-lang, and something else. It definitely has a perfumey tropical quality to it, where it's just a distinct fragrance. It's nice. This has never been overly tropical to me. I'm not smelling like coconut or like pineapple. It's just kind of this mellow, perfumey, but still upbeat and warm fragrance. And it's very similar to Rapunzel in my opinion. I do think Tropidelic leans a little bit sweeter. So maybe if you're into sweeter fragrances and Tropidelic is kind of on the scale where it's like, okay, I can't go anything that's not as sweet as this. Maybe Rapunzel isn't for you, but if you like Tropidelic, I think you will get a very similar vibe with Rapunzel. This is going to be the closest thing that I can really categorize Rapunzel as. Again, these are not dupes. These are not identical fragrances, but I think these are similar enough that if you have this in your collection and you're not looking to spend any money, you can get a very similar vibe than what you can get with Rapunzel already at home. So I think Rapunzel is super pretty. I definitely want to test this one out a little bit more as I was a super fan of Tropidelic. I'm not sure why I only picked it up in the mini perfume spray, so I'm kind of leaning on maybe buying this in the full size. I don't know. I feel like that's a big commitment for me though, so I want to test these out a little bit more, but I definitely think if you're a fan of Tropidelic or if you have it at home, you can maybe hold off on Rapunzel, or maybe if you never got all of the pieces in Tropidelic, but you might have the perfume, but you're looking for a lotion or a body wash, you don't want to buy on a Mercari, I think Rapunzel could be a great substitute in that kind of collection. Now, coming in at the number 1 spot is going to be Aurora, and this was very, very close for me. I do think Aurora and Rapunzel are pretty much on the same level, but Aurora has notes of soft rose petals and sandalwood, finished with a touch of sparkling fairy dust. This is a very light fragrance in my opinion. Like, I sprayed it this morning and you can still smell it, but it's very, very soft. I think this is going to be more so one for layering, one, or two, if you're not a fan of super intense fragrance, like you could never even dream of wearing it into the night, of wearing a dark kiss. It's just way too much. Usually fragrance is headache inducing for you. I think you're going to really like Aurora. It's very soft. It's very kind of this florally, but there's still an undertone of this creaminess to it. It has a little bit of sweetness. I would say this is up there for being one of the sweetest in the collection. So if you're normally a sweeter scent type of person, I would recommend this one. And now initially I thought this smelled very similar to one we have seen years ago, and that was Rose Quartz. Rose Quartz had notes of rose water, lily petal, and fresh patchouli. I think the patchouli was pretty similar to the sandalwood we see in this one. Obviously that rose water is similar to those soft rose petals. It's a very airy type of rose, not like a true fresh rose jammed in your face by any means. And then the last fragrance we had lily petal. I wouldn't say there's necessarily a huge floral note in this one, but this one is a very pretty, it definitely has that florally type of vibe that I wouldn't be surprised if there was some type of floral in this, very similar to what we saw in Rose. However, the one thing that I think that the Rose Quartz is missing that this one kind of has, this one has a slight sweetness to it, like a slight almost gourmand in the way background. I would not categorize this one as a gourmand, but I definitely get like a very subtle gourmand quality to this one. And on the official press release, it does describe this as like a floral gourmand type of fragrance. So this one is fairly unique. The one in the current Bath & Body Works lineup that I think this is the most similar to, I had a hard time saying if this was more similar to just the generic rose or the Inspire Rose Vanilla. The Inspire Rose Vanilla, my problem with that one is that the vanilla note, to me, it really comes through, and there's not any vanilla in here. Like, I never get any vanilla from this fragrance at all. So for that reason, I will be saying that this is quite similar to just the generic Bath & Body Works Rose, which has notes of airy rosewater, jasmine petals, and creamy musk. I think the airy rosewater and the creamy musk really align the most to this. Because rose does have those jasmine petals, making it a little bit more floral leaning, I would say that's the main difference between these two fragrances. Also, I would say this one leans a little bit more into that creamy sandalwood, what we saw in the rose creamy musk. So it's a little bit amped up on the sandalwood note. It's a little bit amped up on something sweeter. The rose, on the other hand, it's more so like this truer type of floral. But I do think if you have both, you maybe don't need to go, maybe if you have the rose, you maybe don't need to go ahead and pick this one up if you're really trying to be on a low buy, but you still want to enjoy this fragrance. Again, these are not like exact dupes by any means, but these are a very similar vibe, a very similar category of fragrance that if you're looking to low buy, you're looking to shop your stash, but you want to enjoy the similar vibes of this collection, I definitely think you could already do so at home. But you guys, that really wraps up my ranking and review, really looking at the collection from like an umbrella view. I do think that this is a nice collection. Do I think this collection is for everyone? Absolutely not. I definitely think that as these princesses collection roll out, there's always going to be that question of, are we ever going to get a gourmand fragrance? Is it always going to be kind of these fresh florals with kind of these fruity notes mixed in? I do think there is a gap to do some type of gourmand fragrance. Will we ever see a gourmand come out of a Disney Princesses collaboration? I'm not sure. After they did the first year and now the second year, and they're really keeping with this kind of light floral theme, I think we could see that continued if they ever do a part 3, but then again, I could be completely surprised. We could also have, because Bath & Body Works and Disney are the partnership and Disney Princesses is just a subset of Disney, I definitely think we could see other Disney themed collections. I would love to see an Alice in Wonderland collection. I'd love to see a Winnie the Pooh collection. Like, of Disney villains, I'd love to see a really revamped, really well thought out Disney villains collection. So I think there's a lot of opportunity, but I think this collection is much more for those fresh, floral, maybe slightly fruity in a Snow White, or maybe that very slightly fruity in the Life's a Fairy Tale. For those people that enjoy those types of fragrances, I wouldn't say this is like for everyone. It's just not going to be everyone's cup of tea, which is totally okay. So you guys, that really wraps up this video. I hope you guys enjoyed and found it helpful. Let me know if you've smelled these fragrances and you think any of my kind of comparable fragrances were spot on, or if you smelled them and you smelled something completely different. I'm always looking to see what you guys have to say in the comments, but I hope you guys enjoyed, found it helpful, and I will see you all in my next one. Bye guys.